Tom Bilyeu is the host of Impact Theory, an interview series that explores the mindsets of the world's highest achievers. He went from growing up in a morbidly obese family, being dead broke and not able to pay his bills, to building his company Quest Nutrition, which is a billion-dollar business.
Need motivation? Watch a Top 10 with Believe Nation.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like na 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 na. For my top 10, top 10, na 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 na. This one's for my top 10.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more. And you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Tom Bilyeu, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Okay, let's start with rule number 1. Learn to let it burn.
Have you seen Fight Club?
Yeah.
All right, there's a part in Fight Club, and the gift that I would like to give the world, if I had, which I did not, but if I had sat down and set my intention for, what do I want to convey? This is one of my top 5 things that I want to get across to people if you really want to succeed.
Yeah.
There's a moment in Fight Club where he puts his hand out and the guy puts a caustic solution on the back of his hand and it burns. And he tells him that he has to just leave it there. And he ends up holding his hand down so that he can't take it away at first because it hurts so badly. And then finally he releases and the guy has the strength to leave his hand there and let it just burn. And what I'm saying is you have a mechanism in your mind called the psychological immune system. Its job is to get you to pull your hand away, to wash off the thing that burns, and hey, you're fine again.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is if you want to be great, the burning sensation is you having to accept that you've fucked something up, that you're not as good as you want to be, that there are people that are better than you, that you're not as far along in the journey as you want to be. And what you have to learn how to do, if you want to be great, you have to learn to let it burn. And even though your impulse is going to be to turn away from that, to not look at it, to soothe it by saying it's them, it's their fault, they fucked it up, I grew up in the wrong place, it's fine for them, they're wealthy. Whatever excuse you use to try to let yourself off the hook for not being where you want to be, instead of saying, actually, the power is the ability to let it burn. And one of my employees was just asking me yesterday, and he said, how do you not get overwhelmed? And I said, you want to know the God's honest truth? The second I feel that impulse, Brendan, I say to myself, you don't get overwhelmed. I'm not going to back down. I will not break. You cannot break me. Get that shit out of your head right now. And just interrupting that thought with an aggressive impulse of I'm gonna let it burn. Now, I'm not a moron, so I immediately go, hey, thank you, psychology, for letting me know that, there's a lot of things coming at me right now. So I'm gonna go meditate. But the way that I interrupt the thought is by reminding myself not to be weak.
Who's in control?
100%.
Rule number 2, have intensity.
They once gave me a list. It was 750,000 keywords, and I had to comb through it in an Excel spreadsheet and say either yes or no. That took days and days and days of mind-numbing yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no.
What do you mean 750,000
Because this was
words?
back in so we had words that did we want to advertise on? Do we want to advertise on these keywords? So you would buy a list of powerful keywords on Google, and this is all CPC stuff.
Got it.
So do we want to show up on these keywords, yes or no? Here's our business, you know what we're doing, what keywords would we want to show up on? And so I'd have to go and clean the list. There's no way, no AI to comb through it for us. So I would do that. So anything like that, where I just add value, add value, add value, and everyone starts gravitating towards the person who's always upbeat, great energy, and never says no, and is always asking how they can help. It is a formula that will win for all time. And so that was it. And I just threw that intensity at it, because every day I was like, I'm here to get rich. I'm here to get rich. And when I get rich, I'm gonna go build my studio. I'm gonna get rich, 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 rich. And that was all I thought about. I obsessed over it. Now that would end up being my almost downfall, but that was my obsession.
Rule number 3, tell yourself a different narrative.
If you want to make a change, you have to change your vision of who you are. You have to begin telling yourself a different narrative.
And the narrative you tell yourself about yourself is everything. And if you tell yourself that you're a scared, undereducated kid from Tacoma whose family has never accomplished anything, let me tell you what you will become. A scared, undereducated kid from Tacoma who never accomplishes anything, because that's what you believe. You tell yourself that story enough, and it will become real. But on the flip side, you could tell yourself a story of you're a learner. You learn faster than most people. You're willing to put in more work than most people. You're willing to read more books than most people. You're willing to spend an inhuman amount of time every day improving your mind simply by getting new ideas into the system. And that you will admit that you're wrong faster than anybody else, that you won't let your ego get in the way. And you tell yourself that story over and over and over. So when somebody comes and tells you how stupid you are, that you're just a dumb kid from Tacoma, you go, you're right, that's amazing. Thank you for pointing out that flaw, because now that I'm aware of it, I can improve it because I'm the learner. And once I switched my narrative to being the learner, it didn't matter where I started, it only mattered where I was trying to go. And as long as I had that clarity, then I could execute because I believed I could do anything I set my mind to without limitation.
Rule number 4, suffer in service of someone else.
When you look at somebody with money, especially when you don't have it, you admire them. And so you think, if I had money, I would admire myself. But it doesn't work like that. So once you get the money, the thing you thought would happen to yourself, the story about who you are, you think is going to change, and it doesn't. So that's when people become totally disillusioned. They think, if I have the Ferrari, I'll think differently about myself. If I have the house, I'll think differently about myself. Your insecurities are coming with you wherever you go. So if you think anything external is going to change that, the only thing that changes your insecurities, show up in the gym. Put in the effort, go to work, do the things, suffer in service of somebody else, do something to bring beautiful things to people that you love and care about, do something beautiful to bring something to somebody you've never even met. Those things will change your story.
All right, what is up, everybody? I want to talk to you about my good friend Evan Carmichael's book right here, Built to Serve. I'm actually going to read you a section. There are some amazing parts of this book, and this is one of my favorite. It's under the title, Comfort is the Enemy of Greatness. And it goes, when you're comfortable, you don't get strong. When you have plenty of fresh air and no adversity, you crumble as soon as something gets hard. It's rarely the kids of rich parents who go on to do great things, even though they have all the advantages that money, connections, and education can buy. Why is that? Because they're too comfortable. People who are comfortable don't create great things. There it is, Evan Carmichael, bringing the heat in his book, Built to Serve. Get a copy.
Rule number 5, follow your passion.
For 8.5 years, I'm doing that. I am working 7 days a week, ignoring my wife. At about the 6.5 year mark, my wife pulls me aside and says, you're now damaging our marriage, and I'm not willing to continue like this. So I was like, all right, something's got to give. And that forced me to really look and say, I'm profoundly unhappy, and showing up every day chasing money just isn't actually who I am. And I need to do something that makes me feel alive in the moment. So it ends up being a cool part of my story, but what I want people to know is when the following thing happened, I was awash in shame. And so there I was, the guy going hard. By this point, I've worked my way up now. I'm the chief marketing officer of the company. I own 10% of it, all just through sweat equity. They made good on their promise. And I was so broken inside and so unhappy that I was like, I have to leave. I need to go back to filmmaking. I need to do something that in and of itself, like, I will love and be passionate about. And what I realized was the struggle is guaranteed, the success is not. Now, at that time, I was a multimillionaire on paper, but as you well know, being rich on paper is very different than having money in your bank account.
No doubt about it.
So I was rich on paper, but I did not feel rich. And so I was like, what am I doing all of this for? So my wife and I talk, and I'm like, look, I know I promised I would make you rich, and I swear to God I will one day, but I'm gonna have to take a step backwards first, because I can't just muscle through like this. I'm just losing so many years of my life. I need to do something that if I'm gonna fail, at least I'm gonna fail loving what I'm doing. She was totally behind me. She said what are now famous words in our marriage. She said, I bet on you. I was like, that means a lot. So I go in and I quit. And I said, look, here's your equity back. I'm not gonna cross the finish line, so I don't think I should get anything for this. So, take it and do your thing. And I'm gonna go to Greece. We were gonna move to Greece, and I'm gonna write, and that's that. And they said, look, we could do this without you, but we don't want to. And so what would it take for us to keep working together? And I laid out a plan of, if whatever I'm gonna be doing next, it's gotta be around value creation, it's gotta be around passion, It's got to be something that we would love every day, even if we were failing. I want to build community. I want to be myself. And I said, look, this thing that we now call social media, wasn't called that back then, but social media, I think it's going to change everything.
What year is that?
This is 2009.
Okay.
So I'm like, I think this is going to change everything, going to change the way that people do business. And actually, this probably was a little bit earlier than that. So the next company, I want to be transparent. I want our real personalities to shine through. I want people to see, like, we actually want good things for them. Yeah. And so that, for 3 very different reasons, became the core of what we wanted to do. And so we founded Quest Nutrition. Everyone told us we were crazy, that we were leaving technology, like the place where people actually get rich, and going into food. The place where you're in manufacturing, it's going to be small margins, you guys are never going to survive this. And so everyone thought we were dumb, but our thing was, we're never going to make decisions based on profitability again. We're going to be making it based on like actually adding value to people's lives, being passionate about what we do every day, and loving our lives. And so we actually made a promise to each of us, and we said, you're going to enjoy what you do on a day-to-day basis, simple as. And so if it's something weird, like when I started doing Inside Quest, fine. Like, even if it's not, like, we don't see the immediate ROI in the business, if you love it and that's a part of what's making you a complete and full human being, then let's do it. And so we got into really crazy stuff, but ended up being amazing. Because we made that promise to each other. So that was how all of that began, and then we just really lived up to it, about value creation, about not just trying to sell people on something, about building a real community to uplift people, and it just so happened that we had the right product at the right time, marketed in a totally new way. Because of my background in film, we were creating all of our own content in-house. We built an entire studio inside the company. We were shooting everything long before that was like a thing. It was like, we were doing that, and everyone was like, this is crazy. But then we grow by 57,000% in our first 3 years alone in manufacturing.
That's nuts.
Rule number 6, set rules to live by.
People don't have enough rules in their life for themselves. So for instance, I get out of bed in 10 minutes or less, doesn't matter. And I don't want to. That's why I have the rule. Because I went through,
calloused your mind.
Literally, I went through a period where I would lay in bed for 3 to 4 hours, awash in shame at my inability to get out of bed. And it just embarrassed me. And so I felt badly about myself. So I wanted to make a change. So I knew that I needed a bright line. So bright line, 10 minutes or less, you get out of bed. As soon as you realize you're awake, that's it. So, and the rule is more specific. It's like I have to have had at least 5 hours of sleep. But once you put the rule in place, then you just live by it. And that's how you earn credibility. Like right now, I don't feel the way telling you that I want to feel. This is a good moment. He's on my team. I'm pointing at him. This is a good moment. So I'm saying this, and I don't feel good about saying it. Why? Because today, I don't know what happened. I got out of bed in 11 minutes. And I was so
You literally
pissed.
Time it?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, from waking up to actually physically getting out of the bed?
Correct. My feet must be on the floor, and I must be standing up before it ticks over into the 11th minute. And today, I don't know what happened. I was aware of the time. I knew I needed to get up. And for whatever reason, one of the minutes just went faster than I thought. When I looked back, I was like, damn it. And so
I'm surprised you even made it here today then.
Right? Yeah. So now this comes into like knowing how to handle something like that. Like if you totally fall apart because you don't live up to one of your rules, you're violating another one of my rules, which is don't do anything that doesn't move you towards your goals. So it's like, yes, it is a part of my identity to confess this. So because I'm talking about it, I want to say it now to an audience. It's the only thing that will allow me to reset and be able to feel good about it again, because I don't lie. When I miss it, I own it.
Well, look, if your biggest problem is it took you 11 minutes to get out of bed,
sadly, that's not my biggest problem.
This is a high quality problem.
Right. Yes, very true. But my thing is people don't have the rules. And so I have other rules. For instance, I wear a size 32 pant. That's it. And so
no matter what your waist is.
No. I won't let my waist get out of line with that. So I use the pants as a way to guide. Now I would go down if I got so lean that I was, a 31. That's not a problem. But I'm not going to allow myself to go up. And it's super tempting, like especially around Christmas. I don't try to hold abs through the winter. So during Christmas, like right now, I do not have abs. So, and I'm totally fine with that. I switch a different part of my mentality. During the holidays, my wife and I definitely celebrate with food, and it's amazing. And I love it the most. So, but if that celebration took me up to like 32s don't fit anymore, I got to cut back because I have a rule. So it's like, that's how I keep myself in a lane. I keep myself from getting into trouble. I know the things that I accept from myself and what I don't accept from myself. And it's all like stated. It's very clear.
Rule number 7, accept the reality.
Self-reward and self-punishment is really, really important.
Yes.
And you I think that if people don't sort of automatically have the guilty thing, which they probably do, it's more a willingness to lean into that and to say, okay, this is actually going to serve me, this is going to work for me. And I actually do wonder sometimes, as somebody who now basically has a profession of giving advice, at least on the one side of what I do. And so I think a lot about like who should actually take my advice, because my advice is not going to lead to a carefree, easy life. Right. Lisa was just saying, she was laying in bed last night thinking about me, and she said, how the f*** does he do it? Because there's just a level of things that I'm willing to take on, and one, I'm not even sure it's healthy for me, and two, I'm certainly not certain that it's healthy for other people. But what I do know is that I have a level of thrill and pleasurable obsession around it. So for me, it's fun. So when I think about the guilt or the momentary pain of f***ing something up, and you talk about me getting better as a speaker, it's like that journey is, it is a very simple journey that requires you, though, to really accept that you're not very good at things right now, and that's fine. And so a big key for me has always been to think of my life not through the lens of a moment. Mm-hmm. And I used to tell this to my employees all the time, like, stop judging yourself through the lens of a moment and start judging yourself through the lens of 10 years. If you think of yourself in 10-year increments, like, you will blow your mind. So if you're embarrassed today about where you are, don't compare yourself even to yesterday, which may not soothe that and encourage you to push forward. Think back 10 years. My gut instinct is, unless you've really been treading water, in which case then leverage that pain to never do that again. Yeah. But if you think back to where you were 10 years, chances are, like, you're gonna be blown away with how far you come. And so then it's like, all right, then I'm just gonna focus my gaze 10 years in the future and start saying, what would I have to do to be somewhere where I'd be blown away then with where I'm at now? Yeah. But it really does require you to say, okay, I'm the pride that I'm going to establish is actually around my willingness to look at the fact that I'm not good right now today.
Rule number 8, become more adaptive.
If a meteorite were to strike my wife and kill her, I wouldn't blame anybody but me. That is entirely my fault. And I can back that up because people are like, Tom, that's so ridiculous. How could a meteorite striking your wife and killing her be your fault? That's dumb luck, divine providence, like fate, whatever you want to call it. But Jesus, man, it's ridiculous to blame yourself. And then I point out, I'm on the board of the X Prize. At the X Prize, there was a prize presented that would allow us to track near-Earth objects better than we are today. I voted it down. Because I don't think it matters. I don't think that the likelihood is high enough, but it's there. I know that there's an organization right now that already tracks near-Earth objects. I've never sent them a dime of my money. I've never called them to encourage them. I've never sent them an email with ideas, nothing. Now I know all of this stuff exists, and I do nothing to stop it from happening. So the only thing that I can say if my wife were killed by a meteorite is I did nothing to stop it. I could have made a different decision and got a different outcome. I need to focus on that to remind myself I can always make a change. I can always do something different and get a different outcome. So if you come in and you disrupt my industry, my first thought is not, F the world, what are you doing? This is so terrible and sinister. We have to stop AI or whatever. My first reaction is, how do I become more adaptive? And people are putting so much energy into thinking like, I'm frail, I'm weak, I have to be protected, that they become frail and weak, when in reality they are not. My favorite quote on the planet is, Darwin is often misquoted as saying it's the strongest of the species that survive. He did not say that. What he actually said was, it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but rather the most adaptive to change. That's how humans became the apex predator. We are the most adaptive species on the planet. You can take us anywhere and we will thrive. And it is that ability to adapt mentally and physically that makes us amazing.
Rule number 9, have a growth mindset.
In your experience with all the, business experience that you've had, the books you've read, the people that you've spent time with, what do you think is the biggest impediment to people waking up out of this matrix-like existence that's so easy for us to fall prey to?
So I've had a realization recently that I'm not an all lanes driver. There are certain things I've spent so much time thinking about that I'm very good at answering questions, and there are certain things that I'm not. So I'll give you an answer to that question from my very specific lens, which is all about the person. Mm-hmm. So I think that if the things in the world that scare me, the divisiveness scares me. And when I think about what is the individual's creation of that divisiveness, it is one, a desire to belong to a group intensely, a fear of being ridiculed or emotionally ostracized. And once we know that we have this like sucking need to belong, to be respected, to be liked, you can really begin to decide what are the things that you want to be liked for, respected for. And when those are things that you respect yourself for, then all of a sudden it becomes very easy to do two things: to build something that is born of connection, community, kindness. Not that you're not selfish. I'm very selfish. It just so happens that the more selfish I am, the more I like to connect and help other people. I am very much doing it for me. But it manifests in a way that is humanity neutral, worst case, and I think humanity plus ultimately. So that starts with me having a growth mindset, so that you want to see how you're wrong, that you can have these really ferocious ideas, but hold them loosely. Because the moment that your identity is wrapped up in your ideas, you are in real trouble, man. Your identity should be wrapped up in your outcome. What outcome do you want? And are you actually getting that outcome? And then as long as you're not a sociopath with an ugly outcome, like people that get into identity, politics, and things like that, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, no, for real, the world they imagine is a beautiful world for the people that they love and care about. Okay, fair enough. So I'll just give them that they're trying to do something positive. But when you look at the outcome in terms of how it affects everyone, it starts to break down pretty fast. Like, that's where it really starts to worry me. So that to me says that your identity is based on something that isn't necessarily anti-fragile. It's probably based on something pretty fragile. So to use Nassim Taleb's term, something that is fragile, that's easy to understand. Something that is anti-fragile isn't something that's strong or resilient. Those are still defined by their breaking point. It's just that their breaking point is far away. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, even something that's strong, it's strong because you think, wow, it can take a lot before it breaks. Something that's anti-fragile, on the other hand, actually grows stronger the more that it's attacked. So, and that doesn't mean you entrench in a position that clearly everybody is saying, like, this is crazy. The only anti-fragile position that I can think of is to be that of the learner. That is truly anti-fragile. So for instance, if you come at me and say that I'm stupid, I'll be like, amazing. In what way? And the reason that I say amazing is because I know that skills make me more powerful. So you've just said that I have a blind spot, which means that I'm less powerful than I could be. And I'll define power because I think it weirds some people out. To me, powerful just means you can close your eyes, imagine a world, a better world than the one that we have today. You can then open your eyes and actually create that world. So that's the kind of power that I'm trying to amass in my life. The ability to impact people at scale in a positive way. So if you're telling me that I'm less powerful than I could be, amazing. I want to know in what way, because once I'm aware of it, then I can address it, because I know about myself that I'm willing to accept that I'm inadequate, because I know that it's a temporary state. I'm not good at it yet. If I decide that it really does match with my goals and what I want to do, I can get good at it. So it's not ego damaging for you to tell me that I'm not doing something in a way that I could be better. Cool, tell me how. When people don't want to hear that, it's like, they're in a very brittle place. They're being backed into a corner, and people lash out and they're backed into a corner. So at an individual level, I would say to everybody, if you feel that, your blood boiling when somebody challenges you, if you feel like a caged animal or like you're being backed into a corner, I promise you 100%, it is not the truth of the world. It is that you have a fragile something, a fragile ego, a fragile belief system. Something in there can break. And because it can break, you're trying to protect it. And the more you try to protect it, the more hardened and potentially violent, vicious, cruel, whatever, that you may become. So when it isn't that, and you're not afraid of that thing breaking because you want to take information in, you want to assess it, doesn't mean you're going to agree. You may take that criticism and go, I actually don't think that's accurate, but I'm really grateful that you gave me that piece of information. And look, intention matters. You can tell when someone's just trying to be a dick. So it's like, you've got to be cognizant enough of that. But when you get to that point where you're leading with, everything is my fault, including the way this person's coming at me. I've done something to make them want to come at me too hard or whatever. So at the individual level, I think that the fragility versus anti-fragility is where everyone should start.
And rule number 10, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is find your obsession.
You will only ever get in your life what you absolutely must have. Your absolute obsession Is it you that says your obsessions become your possessions? That is so true. And so getting people to understand that level of like, I must have this, until it is that, like whatever it is, if it's taking care of your wife, if it's doing something rad for your mom, if it's having a beach house, whatever it is, until you need that, like you need oxygen, you won't get it. It is gonna demand so much of you. You're gonna fall so many times, there's gonna be so many obstacles, and unless it must happen in your life, one of them will make you stop. Like you said, you can't be for sale. Like if your will can be bought, it doesn't make you a bad person, man, it really doesn't. Right. But if your will can be bought, you're just not gonna get it.
Now I've got a really special bonus clip that I think you're gonna enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I wanna know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video, and how are you gonna take action on it this week? When you schedule in what day, what time, and what place you're going to take action, you have a 91% chance of actually following through versus just a 35% chance if you just got motivated but never created a specific plan. And when you share your plan publicly and have some accountability, you increase your chances even further of actually following through. So I want to know your single biggest takeaway and your plan of action this week in the comments so I can celebrate you.
I am ultra ambitious, and I told my wife the only thing you can never ask me to give up is ambition. And at the same time, my marriage is my highest priority. It's my highest value. So I'm constantly balancing is she asking me to give up my ambition, or is she just reminding me that we've hit a moment where I need to put it first and I need to stop working for a day or 2 days, whatever, and really just give her my undivided attention. And as long as it doesn't feel like she's actually asking me to get rid of my ambition, then it's like, yeah, of course, because that is what I want for myself. It is the thing that's brought me the most value in my life, is my marriage, for sure.
Where does that ambition come from then?
I don't know. It's the one thing I wonder about in terms of like, okay, we're not blank slates. Was I just given ambition, like at a neurological level? Maybe, certainly possible. I've made it bigger and more all-consuming throughout my life. That is for sure. I have just enough stubbornness in me that growing up, when people told me I couldn't do something, part of my like, every time someone told me I couldn't do it, I would say, well, I'm going to do it bigger. You can't even do this, let alone that. Then I'm going to do this. And, we ultimately get to, I'm building the next Disney. So it's like,
So it's externally driven then?
Some of it, for sure. Mm-hmm. But some of it is, everything in my life is driven by how something makes me feel. And I really believe all you have in this world is how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself. So in that dark, quiet night, when you're all alone, do you feel good or not? And so I steer by that. And when I start losing sleep because something is stressing me out, or I think I handled something poorly, I have to correct that.
If you want to change your life for free in the next 30 days, check out my training right here below. Or if you want 10 more awesome rules from Tom Bilyeu, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy them. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.